Hello and welcome to UK EdChat After Hours. I'm Martin. If you want to find out more about me, you can follow me on Twitter at ICTMagic. If you want to find out more about UK EdChat, you can go to the website at ukedchat.com, which is where you can also find the show notes for this episode. Also, you should be able to find those in the details wherever you're watching this. And we're going to jump straight in with my guest today, Dr. Sue Allingham. You can find out more about her on Twitter by going to DrSue22, Dr. Sue22. And again, there's more about her in the show notes. Now, the subject of our conversation today is all about building the curriculum with a particular focus on the early years, but many of the lessons can be broadened out beyond that. And we're jumping in at a part of the discussion where we're beginning to talk about how the curriculum can be constructed.
It's by not putting a lid on something. If you pre-package a curriculum and buy it, or you organise it as a school and say in reception or nursery or wherever you have to teach this, then you're immediately capping off what those children are interested in and assuming they don't know things. Whereas if you engage the children, I mean, I've had children in schools recently talk to me about trophies because their older brother wins football trophies. Now, you don't often hear 4-year-olds talking about trophies. But you think about how much teaching from the statutory framework you can do through an understanding of gaining trophies for football. So a curriculum isn't a pre-packaged thing. It's not layered on top of the statutory framework. It's integral to how you draw the framework out.
Okay. So what about expectations?
And if you're getting it right...
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I was just about to say, so with regard to expectations of the curriculum, you've already touched on this a little bit already, but where do we pitch our expectations when it comes to the curriculum? Because if we're looking at what we've already got in place from government, for example, we have something which is quite regimented. When it comes to what's happening at the classroom level, what we may layer on top of that, it's obviously much more flexible. So where do we put our expectations when it comes to the curriculum? Are we looking at minimum standards, which can possibly mean that there'll be a race to the bottom, or is that something which should be adaptable in the classroom based on what teachers believe the child is capable of?
That's exactly where we should be. It's the adaptability. I mean, if you look at, and mine's been written all over, if you look at the educational programmes in the statutory framework, I mean, that's communication and language. It's only like a couple of paragraphs. If you just simply taught what's in those 2 paragraphs, you're not going with it. But once you think about, well, basically understanding their language, the sky is the limit. And I often think in reception classes particularly, we are in the very best place because the children can fly. And I have found in some work I did when I was still an early years advisor in a local authority, the whole primary school I was working with was doing a whole overhaul of what they were doing in every year group. So, of course, I worked with the early years, the nursery and reception class. And we made a map of everything they covered in nursery and reception. And when we took it back to the meeting, the year 1 teacher said, oh my goodness, do you do all of that? Oh, we better change what we do then, because they hadn't realised exactly how much is covered. Under the 10 of 10, and that it's important to know how numbers work. But I am hearing a lot at the moment about nobody in the class can move on from understanding 10 until everybody understands 10. Now, that's a tricky one. As I say, 100 years ago when I was a reception class teacher, another set of children, 3 boys as it happens, were on the floor with a big piece of flip chart paper, and they were trying to do hundreds, tens and units sums, writing them on big pieces of paper, and they couldn't see how to do it. So I worked with them. And I'd like to think, I mean, they're in their mid-20s now. I'd like to think that somewhere in the backs of their minds, they think, gosh, I remember when Mrs. Allingham taught me that. They were 5 years old. A little boy only 2 weeks ago in the school I'm visiting with was fascinated by trillion. And I didn't know how many zeros a trillion had, so I had to go and learn it. But if you say nobody in this class can move past 10 till everybody understands 10, you're finished. Because you're losing a fair few members of your class. And I think that's really sad. If you allow the children to develop their thinking, it's so much better for them. And the educational programs, that makes sense. It's about strong groundings in numbers and exceeding mathematically, excelling. And we know that word mastery, don't we? It's bandied around a lot. But if you already arrive in school and, oh, hello, I've got a cat landing on me. Here he is. If you already arrive in school because from a family that's very numerate, I don't know, shares numbers a lot, or you've got an older brother or sister who knows numbers, and you already arrive in school knowing how 10 works, you're not going to be very happy if for the entire year you're in school, or 2 years, working on 10 when you can do it already. Sorry about the cat.
That's absolutely fine. Right. It brings me very much on to my last question for you and or the cat. So where do we take this next? Obviously, we have a particular understanding of the curriculum as it is. You say that there's an element of tunnel vision when it comes to what's happening in the early years at the moment with the rollout of the new initiatives that are coming through. So where next?
Yeah. Where next for the curriculum, or where next for me, or where next for Colin the cat?
Well, hello, Colin. Really for the curriculum, so, or maybe more of the understanding of the curriculum. Right. So where, maybe how we should become more comfortable with the idea of having a curriculum, whatever that may be, within the classroom.
That's a really good question. I think a very deep breath needs to be taken nationally. I find it really interesting, as do many of my colleagues. Yes, we have a document that has been formed, but the word reform seems to have sent the world into a tailspin, because actually it's not so different from any previous iterations we've had. But it's that emphasis on the word curriculum that's frightened people. I think a collective deep breath, a collective look and dissection of the actual educational programs. Yes, there are some differences, like some changes in terminology. The early learning goals are different, but don't even think about the early learning goals until May. And I know it's been a really odd year. But teach the educational programs. Stand back and think, maybe a new teacher, I'm working with an NQT a bit at the moment. Stand back and think, I know my children. I know what they're interested in. I know that the educational programs are asking me to do this, that and the other with literacy and numeracy. I can do that with what I know my children are interested in. I mean, let's say cats, for example. You can get a lot of interesting knowledge by talking about cats. There's so much you can do. And I think it's about breathing and relaxing into it, taking that step backwards and understanding the document and just thinking, well, yeah, hang on a minute. My children can do that. And we did it because we went outside and played in the snow. Or it was a very windy day and we collected leaves. It's noticing the learning. It's falling over the learning and seeing what's happening. It's Absolutely. Rather than doing a worksheet on a caterpillar, it's actually going out and finding a caterpillar. and building on that and listen to the children. And if they want to know about hydroelectric power, then find out.
And I think we've really been noticing the learning this evening. So thank you very much, Dr. Sue. And if you have any questions for Sue, then...
I've learned a lot.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it. So Sue's Twitter handle is on the screen right now, and any of the links that we have talked about, including the Facebook. I didn't find that when I was stalking you earlier, so we'll have to have that on the show notes to allow people to find out about that. But thank you, Sue. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, and I know that people are going to find it
my pleasure, Martin.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for watching,
Brilliant.
everybody.
Thank you very much for your support on this.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
Goodbye.